Welcome to John Esse's Sports Channel. Because we've got so many people coming on and subscribing from League 2, we have to do a League 2 prediction, don't we? It's my first one, League 2 predictions for Week 9. And let's go in with Cambridge versus Fleetwood first. And looking at the table, Fleetwood in 11th and Cambridge in 13th. Both these teams really quite stable performances for a mid-table team. And you look at the last six: Cambridge United win, lose, win, lose, draw. Yeah, very much a nice an eclectic mix of teams who they're playing, including Charlton in there. A win against Charlton, 3-1 at home in the Carabao Cup for Cambridge. So very, very good results mixed in there. Very well indeed, that game. Fleetwood, lose, draw, win, draw, lose, draw. Slightly more on a downward slope here. They started better than they've done at the minute. So if either team are on the upward slant, I would say it's the home side, Cambridge here. Both teams are not. They're not scoring huge amounts, ones and twos. They're not letting in huge amounts on the whole. Ones and twos. Crew Alexander defeat for Fleetwood 6 games ago, 4-1. That's about the only one that's really stands out there as far as defeats are concerned. So these are two teams that are capable of winning this game. However, I think Cambridge, for me, are slightly ahead on the stats there. Grimsby were the last time that Cambridge played. They drew 1-1, and of course, if you look at the stats, that's probably about right for this game. 1-1 draw. However, if you look at the amount of play and amazing passing that Grimsby side had, it was twice as good, twice as clinical as Cambridge's passing, and Grimsby just didn't make the most of the fact that Cambridge's passing wasn't quite as slick as Grimsby's. And in that stance, you'd probably think that Cambridge were probably thinking, we were lucky to get away with a draw in this one. However, on the whole, probably the right result. If we look at Fleetwood's last game, 1-1 draw at home to Walsall. Now, you have to think about this from more as a game perspective of where they are in the league. The stats show that the teams were probably about even, to be quite honest. Yeah, Fleetwood, being the home team, had more of the ball, and they had on this occasion Fleetwood actually had a better passing record, and they were a little bit more slicker than Walsall. Did they deserve to draw this one? Probably did on the whole. This is exactly the same stance as the Grimsby game for Cambridge. Yeah, Fleetwood in this case were a little bit more slicker but came away with a draw. They would have probably been slightly more annoyed at coming away with a draw based on the fact that they were just a little bit more slicker with the gameplay. And that sort of negates for me the fact that Cambridge on the whole are playing better and better in these last 3 or 4, 5 games. They just seem to be increasing just that little bit more. And I think that they rightly are going to be catching up Fleetwood pretty soon. Will they catch them up in this game is my question. I think there's not going to be a great deal of goals here. I think it's going to be 1 or 2. Let's go with I'm tempted to go with the home side, but there again we've also got the fact that Fleetwood can control the game quite well. Let's have a quick look at the Notts County game. Notts County 1, Fleetwood 0, and Fleetwood didn't actually do great passing in that game, so they actually more stood back and hoped not to lose it, but they did. I think we're going to go with a 1-0 win. We'll go Cambridge 1, Fleetwood 0. There we are. I've made my decision, and we move to the second game. So the next game is Harrogate versus Shrewsbury Town, and it's 17th versus 23rd. Now Harrogate started in the close season. They were doing some really good football, and they were absolutely brilliant in pre-season. I look forward to them starting this game and then this season. And they just didn't quite carry it off, did they, into the first few games. The last 6 games for Harrogate, win, lose, 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 win, lose. They just seem to be a bit sticky at the minute. That last win was actually Mansfield away 1-0 in the Virtue Trophy, so you can't even count that. Shrewsbury Town, lose, win, draw, lose, win, lose. And at the minute, it's... the Virtue Trophy there for the first win of those two. Chelsea under 21's 3-1 win at home for them. And it is actually a side that I'm looking at and thinking they're just starting to see a bit of a change there at Shrewsbury. And I just I've been looking at them and thinking in the watch-alongs and thinking, they do look like they're turning it around. Let's look at Harrogate's last game. The Swindon 3, Harrogate Town 1. And okay, a brace there for Drinnan. 90+1 though was the second goal he got to make it 3-1 to Swindon. If you look at the game, it was quite even, really, apart from the fact that Swindon were allowed to get into that final third far too often. 22 shots for Swindon. How he lets a team... Okay, they were at home, I will grant you that, but also their passing was really, really good. So Swindon's passing was really good. However, I think that was mainly because Harrogate just let them play. Being the home side, perhaps you should have gone at it a little bit harder and stopped them being able to pass so well and so easily. So that's my first thought on the Harrogate side. The Shrewsbury Town last game, Shrewsbury 1, Salford 3, and actually Shrewsbury Town came back to equalise just after half time. And at that point, I thought, we might actually see another point for the Shrewsbury Town team. But then goals on 82 and 90+2 just scuppered it. And I've seen that from this side. They just seem to just either don't get the run of the green, or they just get those damn, we just lost it in the last bit and just died down at the end of the game. Shrewsbury Town actually were well on top here. Passing was about the same for both of them. They were okay League Two sides for passing. However, the possession, probably about even again. But you have to look at the number of times that Salford allowed Shrewsbury into that into the final third. Salford, for me, have been really good in parts of games, and Shrewsbury made them pay. In that part of the game where Salford didn't quite tick, which has been a few times this season so far, Shrewsbury actually made them pay by getting right into the final third and letting a few shots off. 18 in fact, but only 3 of them were on target and only 1 in the net. So they've got to get more of them on target when a team lets you into that final third. So for me, there's a big difference here between the two sides. Shrewsbury Town are capable of making you pay when you're allowed into that final third. However, Harrogate, well, they do the opposite. They are the ones that let people in. So here, I'm actually going to go with a Shrewsbury Town win. I think Shrewsbury Town will, if Harrogate, and they probably will with the looks of it, if Harrogate just allow the opposition into that box again too many times, then and the results are also backing that up as well. I think Shrewsbury are doing a little bit better in the last few games. I think that Shrewsbury Town will win this one. In fact, I'm going to go with Harrogate 0, Shrewsbury Town 2, and we'll move on to Barnet versus Grimsby. I'm smiling because of last night's result. Of course, last night Grimsby got through to the next round of the Carabao Cup, beating Sheffield Wednesday 1-0 away at Hillsborough. And of course, they had that massive win against Man United 2-2. Of course, the final score, but beating them on penalties. So this side is buzzing as far as the excitement and the possibilities of how well they can play goes. Barnet, on the other hand, are just playing a really good game of football. 15th. they're certainly not looking a side that's going to be in the bottom four, put it that way. So Swindon, win, draw, lose, win. Like I said, Swindon away the first game there, a win. 6 games ago, 2-0 win. Since then, they have had a 4-1 defeat, but that was in the Virtue Trophy against Luton Town. So you would expect even their reserves to be several steps above League Two. Anything else? Well, there's a 3-1 defeat to Shrewsbury, followed by a 2-1 away win to Crewe. Now, of course, we know that Shrewsbury have been just playing a little bit better, so perhaps Barnet can be forgiven for that. They'll have gone there thinking this might be an easy win, but it isn't when a side's starting to pull themselves up by their socks. We'll go straight to the last game there, Crewe versus Barnet. Crewe 1, Barnet 2. Now, Barnet in 15th, they managed to get themselves up to a nice mid-table position there. This was actually a really even game for me. If anything, Crewe, the home side, possibly by a fraction, slightly ahead. I think this should have been a draw, to be quite honest. If any side really deserved a sort of sneaky win, you would have expected Crewe at home with a little bit more possession, a little tiny bit better passing for me. Not an awful lot, but a tiny bit better. They just seemed to allow them in the second half, and I think they sat back after that goal, didn't they? They got that 54th minute lead, and then they just seem for some reason, their confidence levels just seem to take a hold of themselves, and they got a little bit too cocky, and Barnet 57 and 80 minute winner. So winners. So yeah, for me, they've got to not sit back when they think things are going to be a little bit easier. Then you get the Grimsby side. Draw, lose, win, draw, win. Of course, the last time, we can't really go for the stats here, but Sheffield Wednesday 0, Grimsby 1. And Grimsby they reduced Sheffield Wednesday to 0 shots on target. How they did that, God only knows. They were well on top here. They really were all the way through the game. And even though they put up a good performance. In fact, they put up a good performance passing-wise. We know Wednesday can actually play some damn good passing, but just not get in the final third. They did that again here, and it was at home. And Grimsby weren't scared of them. They went at them just like they said they would at Manchester United. And good on them. They did a good job. And the stats show that they were certainly the better side. If we go to the last League Two game, Grimsby Town 1, Cambridge 1, 90 plus 7 minutes equaliser here for Grimsby. It was probably the right result. In fact, Grimsby here would have been thinking, hell, why didn't we win it? We had such great passing. We were a hell of a lot better than Grimsby, but by strides, at least double the quality of Cambridge's passing, and 63% possession, and yet they couldn't do what they did last night against Sheffield Wednesday. They would have been going home, the Grimsby fans, feeling absolutely gutted here. The confidence levels are high with Grimsby, but they're also not too bad with Barnet, and they're at home. This could actually be quite a difficult game to go with, because I can see Grimsby getting 1 or 2, but I can also see Barnet getting 1 or 2. I think this is going to be a 2-1 scoreline, and it could be either way. So Barnet fans, it could be quite easily a 2-1 home win. But I'm going to go with the confidence being so high at Grimsby. They could be tired. Yes, before you start emailing me, please do leave your comments down below. Do like and subscribe, and comment down below. Just think will they be too tired? Perhaps they will. But I'm going to go Barnet 1, Grimsby 2. And the next game is Barrow versus Crewe. Barrow in 21st, Crewe in 8th. However, if you look at the last 6 games, Barrow lose, win, lose, 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 lose. You can see why they're in 21st position. Also, the last 3 games they've let in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 goals in 3 games. Okay, Blackpool away in the Virtue Trophy 5-0 the last time out. However, Blackpool have got a damn good side. They just haven't been clicking in League One. For me, that game was a little bit one-sided, but you would expect that of a League One side coming to Barrow, or playing at home against Barrow. And they were consistent all the way through, that Blackpool side, really strong all the way through it. So perhaps we can't quite keep that 5, but the games before, 2-1 defeat away at Bristol Rovers and a 3-1 defeat at home to Swindon, do show that this side is a little bit rocky at the minute. And on the opposite hand, Crewe Alexandra, in the last 3 games, they've scored 9 goals. So 9 goals scored in those last 3 games. And you have to be thinking that they're doing a really good job. But again, 7-1 win at home to Chesterfield in the Virtue Trophy. So again, we're thinking, were they? A lot of teams here not bothering about this trophy and thinking it's great to try out a few different formations and a few of the kids. And I'm afraid we really do have to take those 2 results out. But even then, you're looking. There's some decent scores in there, both for and against, as far as Crewe are concerned. They can let goals in, as they did against Swindon 3-0 at home, but they can score them as they did against Fleetwood away 4-1. So this side is one of which one's going to turn up, I think. Barrow, last time in the league, Bristol Rovers 2, Barrow 1. And Bristol Rovers went 2-0 up within about 28 minutes, wasn't it? And Barrow waited until the second half before they came back into it. Bristol Rovers can play turn up or not turn up. That is my only other thing I've seen about the Bristol side. But Barrow seemed to be quite consistent for me. This was a game, a game of 2 halves really, and I think Barrow on the whole probably did well enough to see a draw from this game, and they'll be the ones coming away from this game feeling really a bit dejected. More shots at target, okay, less shots on target from those 15 shots, but Barrow really they were just a little bit better as far as getting into that final third, and when they were in that final third, they looked a little bit more confident to me than Bristol Rovers. And the fact that Bristol Rovers seemed to just have a game of 2 halves was, I think, control it. I think in the second half for me is a worrying sign. Crewe Alexandra, though, last time in the league, Barnet 2-1, wasn't it? So Crewe 1, Barnet 2. Obviously, we covered that in the last game. I don't really want to be going into it too much. It was actually quite an even game. Crewe really having the better of this game, even though they came away with a defeat. I think that here, like I said in the last game, Crewe would have been the team coming away thinking, damn, why didn't we get at least a draw from this? They really should have got a draw. A little bit better passing, not too much, but a little bit better passing by Crewe. And we know that side can actually do some good passing. So Barnet versus Crewe. I think on the whole, the Crewe side does seem to be able to provide a good, consistent game all the way through. However, it can also not turn up. So it's a case of will Crewe turn up or not, and Barrow, will they let goals in? Will they want to fight back after that Blackpool 5-0 defeat, or will they want to will they hang their heads and start on one of these 6-game defeating runs? Because they've already lost 4 in a row. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to go with Crewe on this one. Barrow 2, sorry. God. Barrow 0, Crewe 2. You knew what I was going to say before I finished it, didn't you? I'm just sort of thinking of the different teams in the league. Yeah, Barrow 0, Crewe 2. And we'll move on at that one. Yeah, thank God we'll move on. Bromley versus Chesterfield next, and yeah, this is an interesting one because it's 7th place versus 6th place. If you look at the table and the stats, you can see both of these teams are very much about winning, or if they don't win, we'll try and sneak that draw. But they do try for wins. They're not one of these teams that just doesn't try not to lose a game. So this is going to be a game, I think, where both of these teams try and get the most out of the game. Bromley in their last 6 games then, draw, win at home to Harrogate, draw and a defeat to Oldham the last time out 1-0. There can be goals here, 2, 3, but there can also be goals against 1, 2, 3. So this is a side that's quite capable of scoring. They are front-footed. They will get in. They will attack, especially at home. And this Chesterfield side that's had a lot of money spent on it, I think. Lose, win, draw, lose, draw. For me, the wheels just seem to have slightly gone a bit wobbly. Probably from injuries and fatigue. I mean, it certainly takes its toll when you've been on a break and you come straight back into this sort of training regime and games every week regime. These also can let goals in. The 4-1 defeat away to Gillingham and a 7-1 defeat away at Crewe Alexandra in the Virtue Trophy. Just 3 games ago, and you can see this Chesterfield side just was seemingly a little bit up and down. And you look at that last game, the Milton Keynes, which we will look at. Milton Keynes away at home, 1-1 draw, and actually I found that one quite interesting to watch on our watch along. Bromley last time out. Then we'll go to the Oldham game. Oldham 1, Bromley 0. And in this game, if you look at the highlights, Oldham were really the better side all the way through this. 82nd minute for them to take the lead. I was quite surprised at that. I thought they would take lead a little bit quicker than that. Slightly bit better play, slightly better passing, slightly better organised than the Bromley side. Bromley side really didn't have any really clear-cut chances, but they certainly had chances, and perhaps if they could get more of those shots that went awry on target, they should have got 1 or even 2 from this game. Might have snuck a rare win against the run of play. So it's not impossible for them to have won that game had they actually been a little bit more careful with their blasts at goal. That defence, though, for Bromley is actually not too bad. It can be a little bit shaky, but it's quite consistent, which when we go to Chesterfield, 4-1 defeat, 7-1 defeat, yeah, it can collapse, can't it? Milton Keynes was the last game there. Milton Keynes going on ahead on 25 minutes. Chesterfield coming back through Naylor on 86. Did they rescue this game, or was it a well-deserved draw? I think that Chesterfield actually were better all the way through this game. They played better passing, better abilities, but they just didn't seem to get into that. Well, they got into the final third, but they didn't get into a shooting position with a clear shot on goal. Enough for me. Several times it got blocked. Only 4 times it was on target without it getting blocked. So it was a good defensive run by MK Dons, making sure that they didn't quite get a clear view of goal when they got into the final third, but they were Chesterfield getting into that final third. MK Dons, on the other hand, probably going away here thinking, wow, we were lucky to get away with that draw, because they were really on the front foot, Chesterfield, all the way for me. and I think even when the MK Dons scored, I think I was really thinking Chesterfield are going to get it in here, and all of a sudden I went back and there was a goal for MK Dons live on our watch along. So it was probably a Chesterfield disappointing day there, and I think that's what's happened over the last. They've had a few really disappointing results when actually they should have been a little bit further ahead. 10-man Walsall won, Chesterfield 0 the game before, and Chesterfield got no shots on goal here, but they actually got more shots at goal again, and the same thing's coming through. If they can get more of these wayward shots on target, that's 2 games in the last 2 that where they've just not got enough of those shots at target, on target. So that's going to be my. I think that Chesterfield will sort this out. They have to sort this out, don't they? There's lots of people going to be telling them, just get more of them on the bloody target. But Bromley, for me, are just about. They've got the home advantage. They can score. Chesterfield, I think, will be turning this around, and I think they'll turn it around here. But unfortunately, I think that this Bromley being at home may just have the advantage. And I can see it being a 2-1 win in either direction, but I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm going to go Bromley 1, Chesterfield 1, and quickly disappear to the next one. Yeah, and Cheltenham versus Oldham next. Cheltenham in 24th, Oldham in 14th. Is this as much of a one-sided act as you think it would be? Well, let's just look at this, because there's been a bit of a renaissance at Oldham, but I think there's been a pretty decent change at Cheltenham. So both of these teams, I think, gain a little bit more confident over the last 2, possibly 3 games, which is strange for Oldham, because they'd obviously lost 5-1 in the middle here to Manchester United in the under 21s in the Virtue Trophy. We'll take that one out, as we will the Plymouth defeat for Cheltenham, 2-0 to Plymouth away. So let's have a look at that. Removing the two Virtue Trophy results, shall we? So the last 5 games: lose, draw, win, lose. So pretty mixed bag here. You've got to remember that 1 win there 2 games ago against Accrington Stanley, 1-0, is actually Cheltenham's only win. So their only win came 2 games ago, and since then they've lost 2-0 to Crawley Town, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. In fact, we'll have a look at it now. Crawley Town. So Crawley Town 2, Cheltenham 0. And this one was a game where Crawley, they were just on top in every area of the game, but not massively. I think that 2-0 perhaps was a little bit of an over-exaggeration here. 2-0, perhaps not that much. This was probably a 1-0 game to Crawley, really. I think Cheltenham will feel themselves a little bit hard done by. They certainly should have been able to get one in the net at least, and that may have stopped them from losing the game. They may have been able to get away with a draw here. I don't think it was completely out of the expectations when you look at the stats and how they played on the television. I think that Oldham, though, they've gone draw, lose, win. Like I said, they've really got a bit of a renaissance recently. They didn't let the 5-1 defeat to Manchester City. Did I say Manchester United? Manchester City. I don't think I said Man United, didn't I? Manchester City 5-1 get under their skins. In fact, the game after the 1-0 Gillingham defeat, they didn't really seem to be that much bothered about it. In fact, really, they should have got a draw from that game. So they didn't let it get under their skin. They came back. They played a good League Two game of football, and then they've come back fighting in the next 2. Bromley was the last game. Oldham 1, Bromley 0. And in here, as we said before, of course, we've been through Bromley as well. That Oldham side were on top all the way through in every aspect of the game here. Bromley it was close enough for Bromley perhaps to have nicked a draw had they got more of those shots on target, and that's the problem. Oldham allowed Bromley in far too often for me. That defence not quite as slick as it needed to be, because that front end was reasonable. But if you've only got a reasonable front end, you need to be making sure that back end is a lot better than what the Oldham's back end is. So I think will Cheltenham be able to turn that defensive frailty of Oldham's around? Because obviously the last two teams, Cambridge and Bromley against Oldham, haven't actually made the most of that frailty at the back. Whereas could Cheltenham? Well, they've got a little bit of confidence, and I think that they'll be sort of thinking, we nearly got something out of the Crawley game. We did get something out of the Accrington game. Things are changing here. I can see this one being a 1-0 win, and actually I can see it being a 1-0 win in either direction, guys. Really can. It's a case of which one. I just look at the consistency of that Cheltenham side. I'm going to go with Cheltenham 0, Oldham 1. I nearly turned it round in the last second there. I'm going to stick with that one. That is how close it is. That is how close it is. Please do like and subscribe and give your comments down below. As we go to Colchester versus Bristol Rovers. Now, Colchester 19th, Bristol Rovers in 9th. You immediately see this Colchester side just trying not to lose. I know there's been 4 draws, and they do look like they could be one of these teams that at the end of the season have a lot of draws in them. Colchester last time out, Accrington 1, 10-man Colchester 0. 86 minute Edwards sending off there for Colchester, and you have to start thinking, right, okay, this Colchester side they could have got a draw from this, and again they just failed at the last minute. I don't think that sending off made too much of a difference here. Colchester really defending for their lives and not getting too many shots at goal. However, their passing was really good. They just they couldn't get past a certain point of the pitch. Every time they went so far, that this Accrington defence seemed to just stop them in the tracks. I think that they could have got a draw from this one, but it would have been one of these sudden breaks taking Accrington by surprise. However, I think 1-0 was probably a poor result for Accrington. They could have made this one 2 or 3, but didn't make the most of the fact that they too were trying to break down this Colchester team that actually played some good passing football and kept the ball quite well in their own half when they had it. So that was a good game. Interesting to break down that one. I think Accrington at the end of the day should have won that one 2 or 3-0. It's the fact that they didn't that makes me think that Colchester could have took them on the break and nicked another draw. That would have been just 5 draws so far in the league in the first 8 games, which it's showing what they're doing, isn't it? Bristol Rovers, draw, win, win. And of course, Barrow last time out, and again we've been through these as well. Bristol Rovers 2, Barrow 1. Bristol Rovers have just not turned up in the entire game, occasionally already, and sometimes it made a difference, sometimes it hasn't. In this game, Bristol Rovers were they were at home. I would have thought they'd have controlled this game a lot more. They allowed Barrow in far too often for me, and Barrow will be quite disappointed they didn't come away with a draw. Bristol Rovers will be thinking, why did we let Barrow take hold of the game in the parts they did? Because Bristol Rovers didn't take hold of this game. They didn't control it. They were at home and they still didn't control it, and that is a slight worry for me on that one. If we go back to the one before that, then the Newport 2, Bristol Rovers 3, and again they just didn't. They let Newport in far too often at the back, and this Bristol Rovers team can play some good football. They can turn up and turn on the style, but that back end is just a little bit shaky for me, and I think that they've just been good up front. They've been good up front. They the 2-1 win to Barrow, the 3-2 win to Newport, and then the 1-0 win away at Grimsby, the mighty Grimsby, and they managed to win that one. And you have to think that Bristol Rovers not only turned up, but they turned up and won them in a game that realistically Grimsby's passing was absolutely stonking, but they still managed to the Bristol Rovers side still managed to nearly slip of the tongue there, nearly managed to get shot, wouldn't I? Bristol Rovers side still managed to get the win from it, so good on them. They did a good game there. Will they turn up? I think they will, because their confidence levels against this side will be just a little bit higher. I think it's going to be a close game. That this could be 2-1 in either direction. Once again, though, I don't like going for the away side because I know that Colchester are going to do well at home this time. I just got a feeling about it. And they'll want to come back after Accrington. I'm going to change it. I was going to give a Bristol Rovers 2-1 win. I think that 3 wins in a row, maybe they'll be a little bit cocky. Maybe Bristol Rovers will go there thinking it's an easy win. And it's those games that make teams that are just starting to tick, just starting to get things together, like the Shrewsbury, like the Colchester, that are just going to cause the issue. I'm going to go play my joker. I'm going to go Colchester 2, Bristol Rovers 1. I've changed it round. I can't change it now, and we'll move on. And we move on to Milton Keynes versus Accrington Stanley. Milton Keynes in 10th, Accrington in 20th. But of late, it's been a little bit sticky for this side, Milton Keynes. They spent a lot of money on this side. I think them and Chesterfield seem to have built a decent squad. But Milton Keynes, draw, win, lose, draw, lose. Last time out, 5-1 defeat to West Ham United under 21 in the Virtue Trophy. Again, we'll remove that one from the scene. And you get we get 5 games of draw, win, lose, draw. The last time out, the Chesterfield 1-1. Of course, this was for me the game of the week, and wasn't it? Because these are 2 teams spent a lot of money on their sides, created a side that should be, both of them should be in the top 6, if not in the top 4. And Milton Keynes just didn't quite tick here. Chesterfield managed to keep them well out of that final third far too easily, and Chesterfield played the better football. Although Milton Keynes weren't playing poor pass, they were actually good themselves. They were pretty good passing. Probably, I would say that their gameplay and their game plan was probably akin to the bottom half of League One. So actually, it was a good game, and I think Milton Keynes should be probably be disappointed that they didn't nick it. But there again, with 1 shot on target and 1 in the net, Milton Keynes are probably at the end of the day realistically going home thinking we were lucky to get the draw. But on another day, they could have took Chesterfield perhaps once, with 1 or 2, and perhaps not let them get that 1 goal at all. So it could have gone either way, really could. It probably more often than not that game will be played out and Chesterfield would have won it, which sort of gives me a little bit of that would have given them 4 defeats in a row. And we've got to think of the mental side of this, and that's going to be quite detracting to the performance levels of MK Dons. Accrington Stanley, draw, lose, win. That last time out, their 1-0 win to at home to Colchester. And I don't think the red card for Colchester made any difference here whatsoever. Accrington Stanley were well on top here. They should have won it 2 or 3-0, to be quite honest. But at the end of the day, it was a 1-0 win. They probably just were happy to get it over the line after the run of results they've had. 5 games without a of draw, lose, draw, draw, lose. They're going to be. We've won one at last. This Accrington side can actually play some good football, and they deserved a little bit more than what they've got in here, and sometimes they've got draws when they deserve to have a win. Sometimes they've got a draw and they deserve to have lost it. This is a side that seems to have got both sides of the coin as far as run of the green. And that makes it difficult for me, because you've got a Milton Keynes side that's feeling a little bit dejected at the minute, and you've got an Accrington Stanley side that just seem to be coming out of the doldrums. I'm going to go with Milton Keynes 0, Accrington 0, and we'll move on. The next game in the list is Newport versus Gillingham. Gillingham keep changing their manager, haven't they? And they changed it. Every time they went, they got a string of poor results. Let's change the manager. And a lot of people out there in the football world, not just me, have commented on this. They can't just keep on changing it. Well, I think they found their manager, haven't they? Against a Newport side that just don't seem to be taking the call. Newport 22nd, Gillingham second, and rightfully so. Newport lose, draw. Last time out against Tranmere, it was Tranmere scored first on 33 minutes, and it was a Tranmere 1, Newport 1. Newport stealing that 87th minute equaliser. Probably, on the whole, that was just about the right result. If anything, Tranmere slightly better. They were the home side. They should have, but it's their fault for not controlling it just a little bit more. They controlled it for me quite well, but Tranmere didn't have that killer instinct to nail this Newport side. And they did get shots off, and they did get into the final third, Newport, but they also let Tranmere Rovers in far too often, and that's a point that Gillingham certainly won't be. They won't be allowing them in that often. If you look at this, the last 6 for Gillingham: win, draw, win, 4-1, 1-0, 1-0. 4-1 win against Fulham under 21s in the Virtue Trophy, and then a draw 2-2 away at Bromley, and a win at home to Notts County in the league. Looking at the win, 1-0 at home to Notts County. Andrews on 46 minutes as they came out for the second half. Gillingham did just about. This is an odd one, because Newport had the better football. Okay, sorry, Notts County had the better football. Thinking of the last couple, the home team, Notts County had the better football here. However, Gillingham were more clinical. So better passing for Notts County. They kept the ball a lot more. They passed it around in their own area better, more often. But Gillingham, when they had the ball, were just a lot more clinical and a lot more precise. And for me, it's that clinical ability in front of goal that got Gillingham their win here. But Notts County certainly weren't out of it, and they allowed that Notts County side to be able to play football, but they didn't make the most of it, which of course is something we're going to have to think about with their game. So which way is it going to go? Well, Gillingham have the bit between their teeth, don't we? We know what their manager's capable of. He's capable of some really solid, consistent performances, and I think that he's probably going to be giving a bit of a rollicking for that 1-0 win, thinking that wasn't consistent, that was below par for this Gillingham team, and knowing him, he's going to be the thing. We won it, but we nearly didn't, and we gave them too much run of the ball. And I think that certainly this Gillingham team, for me, won't allow Newport to be able to control this whatsoever. They're going to make sure that they put right what was wrong in that Notts County win. And I think that we may see, for the first time in the last 6 games. Well, no, they did. They lost. They lost against Bristol Rovers 2-3. Newport. I'm going to go with Newport 0, Gillingham 3, and we'll move on to the next game. So, Notts County versus Crawley, 12th versus 18th. We just said Notts County's last game, Gillingham being given a lot of the ball there, and they were really able to play it round and pass it with a lot better quality, but they just couldn't make the most of it, and it was a 1-0 defeat away at high-flying Gillingham. Win, draw, win, lose, and this Notts County side a little bit just not taking the advantages when they've got it, and that's going to be critical, I think, at the end of the season. However, Crawley, they played so well last season. They nearly avoided relegation on the last game of the season, but they went down. They'll be really disappointed they're in 18th. Absolutely, I know a couple of these fans, and they'll be wanting to make sure that this is not another season of relegation pushing. Draw, lose, draw, win, and they do seem to have just got something about them now that's turned things. Aston Villa last time out in the Virtue Trophy, 4-2 winners, which is pretty good. We'll go to the last league game though, which was Crawley 2 and Cheltenham 0. Crawley leaving it till 68 and 84 minutes, the second a penalty to win this one 2-0. And Crawley, really, they'll be disappointed they didn't make it a little bit more. It could have been 2, could have been 3. This side was certainly shooting quite often, and a lot of them were on target. 17 shots, 6 of which were on target, and 3 of them blocked. So this side could easily have made this 3 or 4-0. And however, Cheltenham probably deserved a goal here, and this is what I say. They could have just about stole a draw on a different day, but Crawley made sure they didn't. They had a lot of shots, some really good passing in that final third. In fact, they had a pretty good day for passing all the way through the game, and I can't see where they're 18th from this game. I cannot see where they're 18th. That Crawley side seems to have just tightened up so much. Harrogate have been playing some really good football pre-season, and they won them 1-0 away from home. And you have to think that this Crawley side is actually taking the bit by the teeth. They're actually, see what this Crawley side is doing that Notts County aren't doing, is they're taking the opportunities and they're taking the chances. Will they take the chances here? I think they will. Notts County 0, Crawley 2. And I think that my subscribers from Crawley, you're coming up the league at least. We'll move on. And what a game we move on to. This must be the game of the weekend. It's Salford City versus Swindon. It's third versus first. Salford City win, lose, draw, win, and Swindon lose, win. And so obviously you'd be thinking, well, this is a side that's on one, isn't it? Now 3-2 winners at home to Reading in the Virtue Trophy. Well, we probably have to take that one out as it is the Virtue Trophy. Did they do a Virtue Trophy? No, they haven't done a Virtue. Oh, they have. Wigan won 2-0 win away for Wigan for Salford City. So if we take that out, it's Salford win, lose, draw, win, and then for Swindon it's lose, win. These two sides are really going for it, aren't they? They can both score. Both won their last game 3-1. So let's just look at that last game for Salford, the 3-1 win away at Shrewsbury Town. And Shrewsbury here are actually starting to play a little bit better, like I said. In fact, I think that they gave Salford gave the home team Shrewsbury a little bit too much of the ball. In fact, if anything, this 3-1 win for Salford was completely against the run of play. Shrewsbury had most of the ball. They just didn't let Salford make Salford pay for the amount of ball they gave them, for the respect they gave them, and for letting them straight into the final third so very many times. 18 shots at target for Shrewsbury, and you have to think that that shouldn't really be happening if you're a side in the position that Salford are. So Salford City 3-1 winners, and I'm thinking, yeah, they ran their luck there. They won because they were more clinical. 3 shots on target, 3 in the net. That is why they won it, and that's how they've been winning. They've been winning because they're just more clinical up front. Crewe Alexander, a random game there. Crewe 0, Swindon 3, and Swindon had 9 shots, 9 shots on target, 3 in the net. However, 19 shots at target, 9 on target. Actually, that's not too bad. That's actually quite good. That's certainly a top 6 finish, isn't it? So I think that Swindon are being very clinical, are being very good up front. Good random game to choose there, wasn't it? However, let's see what Salford, wasn't it? So Swindon against Harrogate Town. Swindon 3, Harrogate 1. I'm saying Swindon, it says Salford, aren't I? Getting the S's mixed up. Swindon here, 22 shots. I mean, that just shows you, doesn't it? But only 7 on target. 14, 21. That's actually not a bad ratio, to be quite honest. Certainly a top 6, top 10 finish, that, isn't it? But where they are, you would expect them to have got a lot more than that. Just a few more, not many, but a few. 7 on target, 3 in the net. That's pretty good, isn't it? Pretty good indeed. I think that they'll be pleased with that. The passing, though, here is the important thing, and I think Swindon's passing is a lot better than Salford's. So Salford are at home, not as good passing, great finishing, good technical ability, can let the opposition in to that final third too often, and I think that Swindon's clinical ability here will make them pay. I'm going to go with one of the results that pops up here so many times. I'm going to go with Salford 1, Swindon 3. And we'll move on. So it is Walsall versus Tranmere Rovers. Walsall in 4th, Tranmere in 16th. And this should be a pretty good walk in the park, shouldn't it? Let's have a look. Walsall lose, win, draw. Last time out, a 1-1 draw to Fleetwood. We'll have a look at that. And then Tranmere draw, win, lose, draw. In there, though, we've got Virtue Trophy-wise. Walsall in the middle there, a 3-1 win away at Shrewsbury Town in the Virtue. We'll take that one out. And Nottingham Forest under-21s draw for Tranmere, so they're not shy of getting a few points against Premier League class under-21s. So 2-2 draw there at home. So it's been a little bit of a mixed bag for both of them. Walsall versus Fleetwood, last time out 1-1 there. Both goals in the first half as well, so we have to think that what happened in the second was just a game of oh god, I'm going to sleep. I remember looking at this one and thinking this is going to be 0-0, this is going to be 0-0, and it wasn't until Fleetwood scored on 16 well, it's not going to be 0-0, perhaps it'll be 1-1. And it was 1-1. It was a I'm sorry, guys, it was a very boring game. Fleetwood absolutely wellied this as far as passing was concerned, but that was because Walsall allowed them to. And to me, not enough tackling by this Walsall side, and realistically, Walsall, I don't know, can't see how they're up there, because that wasn't a good game of football, and Walsall, to me, allowed Fleetwood to have to be able to pass it around far too often, they only got 38% possession, Walsall, and their passing was sort of meh. So 1-1. I think that although the Walsall got into the final third quite often, they broke into the final third en masse and managed to get the goal. 13 shots. They got more shots, so they obviously went quite quickly into the final third to get that shot off. 2 on target out of 13, though, is not very good. Certainly for a team in the position that they are in at the minute, you'd expect higher. Tranmere Rovers then 1-1 at home to Newport, and Tranmere scored first. Newport equalised on 87 minutes. However, this game was sort of quite even. I think 1-1 was probably about right. And would Tranmere slightly 17 shots for Tranmere, 11 for Newport, 5 on target for Tranmere, 4 on target for Newport. You might have expected on a different day, 2 out of 4 times, 2 out of 4 or 5 times, Tranmere might just about nick this one 2-1, but 1-1 was probably about the right score, and I can't actually see too much of a difference here when I look at Walsall seem to be getting the run of the green, and they seem to be doing things to win the game, even though technically perhaps they shouldn't have. There are things wrong with that side that I just can't put my finger on. Do tell me what you think down below, especially if you're a Walsall fan. The figures don't seem to show the game, and if I look at the game, I look at the figures and the stats, and I see the result and think the three just don't match up, and they don't seem to be matching up in several of the games that you've played recently. I just find it a little bit difficult to come out with any score at all here, because I don't know what Walsall's going to do. I'm going to go Walsall 1, Tranmere 1, and sit on the fence. My first video, so don't shoot me down. I will try and learn from your comments. So please do like, please do subscribe, give me your comments down below. And it's John S's Sports Channel with my first prediction video for League 2, Week 9. Thank you for watching.